New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello and welcome everybody to Change Your Story, Change Your Life, where we unleash the lessons and blessings and people's stories live right here on New Thought Media Network. My name is Mitch Austin. I'm your host. Super excited to be here this morning. I'm also a practitioner here for over 10 years, a ministerial student, and I started a company called Speak, Teach, Inspire. And I'm super excited to be breaking down one of the most popular programs that I offer called the Rise and Speak Experience. And it's really the genesis for today's show. What I noticed as I worked with people over the course of 7 weeks when they were telling their stories is they were healing as they began to look back and see the defining moments of their life and finding the lesson or blessing of those moments, and then putting them into messages where they shared those messages with other people. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to have a show? And here it is. Today is the first episode. And so I'm super excited to be bringing this show with Rev Briz and New Thought Media Network. So let's get into it. Our guest today is Reverend Renée Leboa. So excited to have Reverend Renée with us. She's an ordained New Thought minister. She served as the senior minister for the Spiritual Center in Charlotte, North Carolina for 12 years. And she's been a metaphysician studying world religions and metaphysics for over 30 years. She's a affiliated New Thought Network member, a member of Braveheart Women, Wise Women, Promise Resource Network, Emerson Institute, and so many more. And it's Reverend Renée's life work to encourage, empower, and awaken humanity to the divine internal power of universal intelligence. I just love that. And Reverend Renée, she says that she's passionate about transformation, and she likes to say, if I can transform my life, so can you. Mm-hmm. Welcome, Reverend Renée, to the show. So excited to have you here today.
I am so excited. This is launch. This is launch. Congratulations.
Launch time. I know. Thank you for being here. And thank you for saying yes, to my crazy idea. I kind of feel like you and I bounce ideas all the time. I feel like we're the Thelma and Louise, or, maybe I'm Lewis. Thelma and Lewis, New Thought. We just like to jump in and try new things. So I really appreciate you being game today and willing to take your time and to share your story. There's so much powerful food in your story. And I just love how this has unfolded. I knew I needed a guest for my first show, and you and I had just met. We started this, friendship. And then you're like, hey, I'm working on this paper, and it's an autobiographical paper looking at your life through the New Thought lens. And you shared it with me. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So now I have all this backstory to support the show, and just seeing how Spirit has just put all the pieces together has been so much fun. So I'm excited about today. Renée, where are you at in the world, and where are you from?
Wow. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been here almost 20 years. And if you had told me before that I was going to move to the South, I would have never believed it. I'm from California originally, and quite a different environment. And I moved here a week after 9/11 and traveled all the way across the country through all kinds of military towns. And it was a journey in itself anyway. So we're in the depths of summer here, and it's like a hot swimming pool all the time.
Well, you don't look like you're breaking a sweat at all. You know, when I read the paper that you wrote for your master's class to get your master's, 70 pages,
Yeah.
I was blown away about your journey, your story, having risen from abuse, addiction, homelessness, to become a minister, to be a force in the New Thought community. Many people know of you. You do a lot of work in the community. And to witness that journey in that paper was so powerful. So I kind of wonder, Renee, if your life was a book, what would the title be?
You know, it's interesting because it keeps changing. While you were talking, I wrote down, "This is me defined." And basically it's kind of like, who knew? Who knew?
Is that it? Who knew?
Yeah, let's pick that one right now. Who knew?
Awesome. I love it. Right? Who did? I guess God did, right? Or Spirit had a plan.
Yeah.
So in this book, what chapter of your story are you currently in, and what are some of your dreams and challenges?
Well, I would say that I am in the sculpting phase. I would be on the chapter called How to Sculpt Your Avatar.
Ooh, tell me more. How do you sculpt your avatar?
One little hammer hit at a time. You know, it's I realized that everything I thought I was and everything I thought I wanted to achieve, here I am at a new precipice to where I really am this block of unrefined clay, and I can create myself in any way that I want. And I'm no longer who I was, and I'm not yet who I'm going to be. So like the Buddhists say, I'm in that in-between place, and it's really exciting. So I would say that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. My dream is to garden more and just continue to inspire people. Just continue to show people that it's possible, no matter what. It's possible for you to achieve a greater expression of joy and peace in your life.
Awesome. I love that. And this in-between place, this reinvention of yourself, this is not a first time go at this, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm that perpetual chameleon.
And so this chameleon personality, how did that develop? Like, what did that come out of?
That came out of survival skills. That came out of extreme trauma, not fitting in or knowing where I fit in. And so I would adapt myself to environments to survive, to become what people thought I needed to be or what I thought they wanted me to be. And so I would shape shift and try to fit myself in so that I could, I guess in essence, I was practicing to be who I wanted to be. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you say that, because some people say being a chameleon could be you're not being authentic, but what you're telling me is it became a skill. Did it become like a blessing to you in some way?
Well, yeah, absolutely. You know, think of the chameleon. They're so magnificent, and they can blend to their environment, and yet they are so uniquely created. So I see it as a blessing that I was able to do that because it was a survival skill.
Fabulous. Yeah. And so looking back at your life, Renee, and having these different like iterations of Renee, you know, I always say I'm Mitch 2.0, being a transgender man, right? I have my previous life as Michelle and now as Mitch. What is one of the big defining moments that helped you shift to higher ground? I want to quote a piece of your paper here, and this is the part where you moved to Yosemite. you kind of had to start all over again, move in with your mom. Your mom's like, no, you can't stay here. And you had to now become this mountain woman. Like all of this stuff started to happen. And here in your paper, you speak about this part of your life that you said, my goal was to disprove that I was nothing more than an uneducated, worthless drug addict and broken human being who would amount to nothing. I just knew there had to be more. I didn't know how to achieve it.
Mm. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. So how that came to be was I was probably at the bottom of my bottom with drugs, and pretty much almost on the precipice of not living anymore, and in a very abusive situation. And I decided, I don't know how or why, it was not some mystical angels came down or I felt hugged by God. It was not like that. It was, get your butt up off the floor, get in your car and get out of here. And so that's what it was. I went to the mountains. I had no idea how to change my life. I had no reference, no file, anything. And then the day came when I decided to take a tour into Yosemite National Forest. And if you've been there, you know that maybe for the first time when you come around the bend out of the tunnel, and I'm getting chills just saying it again because it's so magnificent. And then there's Half Dome and there's El Cap, and then there's this huge huge valley and trees everywhere. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. And it was in that moment, because I would say I was an atheist before. In that moment, I knew there was a higher power. There had to be something bigger than me. And so I started out to try to find out what that was. And that was a defining moment where I was standing in awe of life itself. And I felt not only small, but big. I felt alive and awake. And I'd never had that before. And I had just been introduced to New Thought. And so I saw that as all synchronistic. And so I dug in. I just dug into the teaching, and I did everything I could to absorb it. I remember one time I actually put the book under my pillow, because if you've ever opened the Science Mind textbook, it's kind of like you might as well be reading Russian at first. At least it was for me. And so I didn't get it. And so I put it under my pillow so I could absorb it via osmosis.
You were in it to win it.
I was in it to win it, yes. Mm-hmm.
So here you are in the mountains. You know you want to learn more about this new philosophy. You've got an awareness of God. So where did your journey, because it sounds like you set a very strong intention.
I did.
Where did the path take you to get into, on the road to where you finally became a minister? Like what was the weaving of that intention? What started to show up for you?
I think it was like I had the intention that I'm not going to just be this. I'm going to learn. I have to learn how to think. And I thought that was kind of interesting, because if you've ever been in the New Thought movement, it really is learning how to think and process life in a different way. And I didn't know how to think. My thoughts were around drama and fear and the world's a dangerous place. People will hurt you. You're just a drug addict, this kind of stuff. And so I started to learn to think. I went to my very first New Thought conference, and here I was surrounded with people who were so spirit-filled and so living in possibility, and they saw me in a way that I didn't see myself. And I had to have that. It was like the very air that I breathe. I had to have what they had, that joy, that peace, that vibrancy towards life. I didn't know how to get it still, but I wanted it.
Well, and kind of going back to your childhood, it seemed like none of that was really existing in your environment. It was more like survival, right? Because you moved a lot, and mom, right?
I moved a lot. And I don't know why I've kept track of this. I've actually moved 55 times. And every move was a start over. It's going to be different here. It's going to be different there. And the truth is that wherever you go, there you are. And that is very true. I mean, it's interesting because unless you adopt a new idea, you're going to keep recreating what you know. And so you have to insert a new idea within the thing that you think you know. You know, when you go to the subconscious and there's that filing cabinet of stuff, there was nothing there that had anything to do with living in possibility.
So true. And that's why I find that so amazing when you said in your paper, I just knew there had to be more.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know how to achieve it. It's like there's some part of you that woke up
mm-hmm.
and started to make a different story for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
How do I make a different story for myself? Michelle Davis says, I'm so relating to your story.
Oh.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of people. Jared is saying, sounds very challenging, interesting, and deep. Thank you for the encouraging message. So definitely resonating here with the audience today.
Well, good.
Around that. So I love what you said. You got to make a different choice for yourself. And so this sent you on a path to be a student.
Mm-hmm.
But when did things get to the next level for you, like practitioner, minister? Like what events kind of happened or unfolded in your life, or defining moments where you made those decisions?
I picked up, and after the conference, nothing felt the same. I went back and my language sheen was different, and the people that I had surrounded myself with were not fitting into my new box. I was separating myself from that experience that I had known. And so I was becoming different. The world I was in no longer fit. So I picked up and moved to Los Angeles to study in person. And I went there to the Foothill Center, which interestingly enough, I was already one of the founding members. I became one of the founding members while I was living in Yosemite. And so I moved there to take classes, and I was absolutely obsessed. I was taking classes sometimes 3 or 4 times a night. I was at the church I was at the church all the time. I would volunteer for everything. And I started singing again because I hadn't sang in a while. I started singing again. I started having a life that I didn't even think was possible. It was so joyful. All these people thinking the same way and seeing in me that I had never even thought was possible. And I think that's what it was. When people see you, the real you, it doesn't matter who you were before. The real essence of who you are is what'll shine through. And that's what they saw.
Oh my God, I love that. When people see the real you, it doesn't matter who you were before.
Right.
How liberating is that? And it's so true. I mean, I've demonstrated that myself, actually.
Right.
Yeah, I just love that. So now you're on a path to really embrace new thought, and you become a minister, and you become a senior minister. Tell us about taking on a church, and what was that like, becoming a senior minister? I mean, was that like the pinnacle, like, oh, wow, I've arrived, or how was that for you?
It was terrifying. I never wanted to be a minister. Yeah. I never wanted to be a minister. And it's one of those things that the universe, make plans and the universe laughs, because there was a higher idea. And it just so happened that this church, it was our home church, needed a minister. We came off the road and we candidated and we got the job, and I was still in ministerial school. My partner at the time, was not even a practitioner. And so we broke all the rules. We asked for variances, and they were mad at us and thought we were arrogant and all that. And we're just like, look, we're just doing what you taught us. And so anyway, so it was terrifying. When I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no concept of how to run anything. And so I just showed up with my heart. I showed up with my enthusiasm, and I showed up with my love.
And how you had a small congregation when you first started out, right? You didn't have much.
No, the church was really, really small. They didn't have a bookstore, no music, no children's program. Maybe 20 people were coming on Sunday, and we just went in there and swept. and just set everything up before they even showed up. We did it all in 1 week. Before they showed up, they hired us. We were supposed to start the next Sunday. I had created a mini bookstore, a children's church. I got that. It was a storage closet. I got everything all cleaned up.
Wow.
We set up an area so that we could have a choir, and we just invited people, if you want to come up and sing with us. So we had that going on. We had a whole schedule of the classes we were going to start.
Mhm.
And so when we unveiled it the next Sunday, people were just like, what in the world? An amazing thing that happened. Somebody did an article on us in the newspaper. We have no idea who it was. We had no idea where it came from, but here was this big article on us in the paper.
And then you grew it to how many members over time?
I guess it was about 120, something like that. We were busting out of the seams, and luckily we were forced to move from there. The building was being demolished, and we moved to the Actors Theater in Charlotte, which was like this really old theater. And the neat part about that was that every Sunday we never knew how the stage was going to look. Never, because there was always a different backdrop. My favorite one was preaching in a bar. It was a bar behind us.
I love it.
It was a bar. Yeah. So that
was so much fun.
It was.
So it kind of feels like you arrived, you reached the pinnacle, but then there was the big event, the come apart. And before we dive into the come apart, we're gonna take a little break here to do some announcements on the network, but please come back after the announcements. Make sure you don't go away, because we have a big event here with the come apart that we're going to get into next. So stay tuned.
You are a gift. That is the absolute truth. You are a gift, a blessing to the world, a way that the infinite love of God shines itself, shares itself, and expresses itself more fully in the world. You are a gift and a blessing. Please take that seriously. Take it as your honor. Take it as your opportunity to be a light that shines for others. Be that bright light of God's love that's the truth of who you are. And enjoy it, because you deserve it.
Welcome back to Change Your Story, Change Your Life. We're here with Reverend Renée Leboa, and we were just discussing her time as the senior minister at the Spiritual Living Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so here you are, you've come from this place of, surviving, learning to be a chameleon, at one point being homeless, getting out of, getting the recovery, cleaning up your life, finding this, and then getting to the pinnacle, senior minister, growing this community from 20 to 120 and expanding into spaces. It seems like life couldn't have gotten much better for you.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. My new phrase is never say never and never say always. The universe, God, whatever you want to call your higher power, will give us exactly who we are. And anything that is unhealed within you will be highlighted. And you can run from it as long as you want, but eventually you're going to have to do something to clean up the basement that is your subconscious mind. And that opportunity came for me without warning, without fanfare, and without flowers. Everything that I had worked for completely came apart, and I was not prepared for it. I was not prepared for the church to start to have a decline, for people to not show up in the way that they used to show up. And that's kind of a personal story. I can't really talk about certain aspects of this story. And it was a complete, I like to call it my come apart. And it was the beginning of a very dark and deep and scary place in my heart and my mind. And when you build your life based on a concept of who you think you are, which I did, when that is gone, when that is pulled away, I was left with the question, well, without that, who am I? Without that, who am I? And I had no idea. I had no idea. And so it was a place where I was standing, and I didn't know which way to go. I didn't know how. I felt like everything had failed me. Let's just put it that way. The teaching had failed me. My God had failed me. It was all a waste of time. And I became more and more and more depressed as time went on. That light within me that was always striving and looking for the next opportunity or the moment of hope or peace, it was gone. And everything just kept getting darker and darker, and the tunnel was deeper and deeper. And at one point I called a friend and said, I am just keeping my nose above the waterline. And I had always known how to bounce back, because I'm a survivor. This time I couldn't. I could not bounce back. I could not bounce back. And I, once again, after 30 years contemplating unliving myself, and I was given an opportunity to take another look at that by some very dear friends. And the position I was in after all of that success and me thinking I had arrived was, I had 5 animals. I had no money. I had a car that would not go in reverse. I got stuck on the railroad track. That's another story. I didn't have any way to feed the animals. Luckily, I was living in a home of someone I knew who was very, very loving and generous with me. And there it was. There it was.
So that was the bottom.
Oh, yeah. And so I had a complete, I guess it was a mental break or a major depressive episode. And the secret that I had kept most of my life is it wasn't one of the first ones. I'd been living with depression and anxiety my entire life, but I'd kept it on lockdown. Well, what are people going to think if I'm in a positive new thought movement, but I struggle with mental illness? And so this has become a very open out platform for me to know that I'm mentally able. I'm not mentally ill, and that the gifts that I receive from the way that my brain works are magic. They're magic to me. And so I
love that. I love that you said that you're mentally able. Like you're changing the story, the narrative in your head about what's going on. I'm mentally able. And this ability includes some gifts, right? Some unusual things that you can do, but it also includes some challenges. It's almost like you can't have the gift without the challenges. Like every gift has a shadow, right? And you were able to tell yourself a different story about that condition, which made you feel how?
It made me feel free. At first, I was terrified because I went live with it. I was doing a show called This Is My Brave, which is about people telling their story of recovery through mental health. And I was terrified when I hit, oh God, click. it went out over the, as I call it, the web. And I got so much response. People saying, thank you so much for being honest. Thank you so much for shining a light. I've been terrified, and it means so much. And so it was an integration. If we're going to love ourselves, we have to love all of ourselves and every aspect of ourselves in order for us to be our authentic selves. And so that was a journey of awakening to the truth of who I was.
I love this, Renee. And I love that you showed us the bottom, right? That you were in that place of, even contemplating suicide. And I can kind of see it. Like, how can I have went through all this to get to the pinnacle and have this happen?
Right.
That must have been the depths of despair. And we don't know who's watching right now, but I found a quote that made me think about your story. It's a Brene Brown quote that says, one day you will tell your story of how you overcame what you went through, and it will be someone else's survival guide.
Yeah.
So Renee,
you froze. What was the question? You froze up. I'm sorry.
Oh, what would you tell somebody who might be in their dark night of the soul, who might be considering, a final solution to a temporary problem such as suicide is? What would you tell somebody having lived through, that kind of pain? What would you offer them as a inspired or something to feed them as they go through this?
The idea that you are alone is untrue. You are not alone. And if you can only see a crack of light, look to it, because there's a hand. There is a hand there for you. There's somebody there that is willing to take your hand and to help you walk up those stairs out of the dark.
Ah, blessed be. We're never alone.
No,
we're never
alone. No.
And Spirit, God's always listening.
Absolutely.
So powerful, Renee. Wow.
Thank you.
I love that. So, you then went through the journey of kind of reinventing yourself. If somebody's in that Bardo, place, or what I like to call, in the cocoon with the imaginal cells, you're like caterpillar goo getting ready to become a butterfly.
Bug soup.
Bug soup. What are some of the things you kind of learned to do in that period that are helpful as you start to move into the next expression of yourself?
I was fortunate. I have a friend who was previously my sponsor, and she works for this organization that was working with the disenfranchised and people that were homeless and people that were living with mental illness. And I got a job there. And then I took courses to become a peer support specialist, which pretty much means that I have lived experience and I can understand what they've gone through. And so I started teaching classes there. I was offered the opportunity to teach classes there. Yes. And it was through this experience of meeting these people and remembering who I had been, where I had been. And I honestly think that they taught me more than I taught them. It was a place where everyone was equal, and it was an opportunity for me to be in a safe place to rebuild who I was. And the thing about Bardo or that in-between place is people feel uncomfortable in it, and rightly so. But it's in that place, kind of like I talked about a minute ago, my clay, my marble structure that I'm making myself out of. It's in that place that you get to imagine and design where you want to go, what you want to do.
It's all about possibility, right? All possibility kind of exists because you're not boxed into anything. It's actually one of my favorite places to be, but it's also one of the most unnerving. And I found that it's a great place to practice our principles, right?
Yeah.
That's really when I start ramping it up.
Most people are afraid of change. I know that I was. And, when we begin to understand and accept the fact that change is inevitable, nothing stays the same. Nothing's going to be the same 5 minutes from now. And so that's the beauty. So this situation, it may feel horrible. It's going to change. And so then something else is going to come along, and then that's going to change. And so it's about staying the course. The journey is not about a destination. It's about learning to awake to your essential self, which is my new, kind of like my new journey. And not only teaching myself what is my essential self, but helping others to dig theirs up.
Amen. We need more of that.
Excavation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you've done a lot. You've accomplished a lot. I know that you're a Reiki master, and you know, have all kinds of wonderful certificates and things that you've done. What are you most proud of in your journey?
Well, the part we didn't touch on is that I officially have an 8th grade education, and I went back to school at 55 and got my GED. And then just recently, I got my master's in spiritual studies. Yeah, that's a big deal, because at one point I was illiterate. And so here I am doing these things, and I don't take any of it for granted. I'm different now as I show up and accept these milestones, and I'm humbled. I'm humbled by the world around me and the people around me. And it's a personal journey for me, you know, the degrees and all that. I mean, people say, what are you going to do with it? I said, I don't know yet. But what I am doing is I am having a new respect for myself in a completely different way, continuing to do things that I never thought I'd do.
Awesome. I love that. It seems like you and spirit keep surprising you, right?
No kidding.
Small
No
ideas.
kidding.
Like, whoa, look at that. Look, that just happened.
Right.
And I read your 70-page paper. I would have never known that you hadn't went through a full continuum of school. You are an amazing writer, and I hope and pray that you put that into a book, because the incredible journey that you've been on. Jarrett says, excellent to hear, and congratulations. You're getting lots of kudos here. Comments, and rightfully so. 70-page, and it's brilliant. I just I still have to go back through it and look at some of the quotes and whatnot. So in your journey, Reverend Renée, is there anything you wish you had done differently?
I think most people would say yes to that. And my answer is no. Because every single thing, every decision, every turn, left, right, or straight forward, brought me to this moment. And I've never been more awake. I've never been more authentic. And I have a lot of growing to do still in that. I wouldn't change a thing. I would not change a thing, because it is about the journey. And unfortunately, sometimes I take the hard way, filled with, you know, brambles and rocks and boulders and big old holes. But the truth is that it has been that which has formed me, informed me, educated me, made me tougher, made me stronger, made me wiser. So no, I wouldn't change anything.
What would you say was that one thing, had it not happened, you might not be here today in front of us? What is that one thing that changed everything? That one decision, that one defining moment?
The one decision, it's like a multitude of decisions, really. But I think the one decision, the first time when I found the teaching, the New Thought teaching, was this strong desire. I want to live. I want to find out what that means. I want to live. And the second one was, it's from a Monty Python movie. It just popped in my head. I'm not dead yet. So that's so horrible, but it's kind of like, you know, stop giving up, stop quitting. And so it was a combination of things. It was a friend of mine who was my sponsor, with a roll of that roll of paper towels under her as I'm sobbing my eyes out, and she's ripping off the paper towels, and I'm just crying. She's like, okay, cry it out, because tomorrow you're making some new steps. And reluctantly, I remember walking through the door, and I'd never felt so small. And I was afraid that someone was going to see me. They're going to see that I had fallen. And I was so embarrassed and ashamed. And there was this one person, she's no longer with us. And I don't want to say her name, but she was definitely a fixture there. And she was homeless and happy and wild and filled with this spirit I'd never seen. And she came to me as I walked through that door, and she said, welcome, you're home now.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that I felt like I belonged back in the world. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Isn't it interesting how spirit uses other people as a mouthpiece? Like we're all in on it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter who you are, whether
Right.
you're that wild, crazy lady or
Mm-hmm.
whoever you are. We're all the voice box of spirit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
So what have been some of the biggest now blessings that you see that looked like they weren't blessings? Like how would you help somebody alchemize that?
Hmm.
Maybe there's some people who look back on their lives who haven't made peace with certain decisions or events in their life. How could you support them with that process of making that peace?
First of all, it's willingness. For me, it was willing to be willing to consider and to consider something different, right? And to make peace with the past it sounds simple, but you can't go back and change it. All I can do is move forward and be a different version than that one. And when you think that you have nothing left to give, think again. Because the same mind that creates the problem of thinking that this is all there is and that you're stuck and you have nothing to give is not the same mind that is going to cause a new experience or a vibration. And so what I would say to anybody that is still struggling with the story, if you can't remember that you are a divine, magnificent expression of the universe made manifest in flesh, find someone who can believe a truth for you.
Ooh.
And if you can't believe it for yourself, believe that they can. And that can be that, I guess, that lifesaver that can pull you to the next shore. And it's sometimes gradual, and sometimes it is as quick as a blink of an eye how your life can change. It's all through intention.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of like spiritual water wings, right? Somebody can give you spiritual water wings so you can get to the next like solid place. Because we are better together, you know, and in our teaching, we talk about that life isn't happening to us, that life is happening for us, but it can really feel like it's happening to us sometimes, can it?
Oh, yeah. When I first came into this teaching and they said your thoughts are things and they're going to manifest in your life, I was terrified. I was terrified some kind of scary monster or some kind of fear thought was going to manifest in my living room. And, you know, I was. But, you know, the truth is it's all about your beliefs. It's about your beliefs, learning to understand what you believe and then rewriting that script to what it is you want to experience.
Thus, change your story, change your life.
Yes.
So we're going to go to one more break. And when you come back, we're going to talk just a little more about some of the alchemy of story and how we can make that change so that we live in a different and move in a different energy, and the importance of sharing our stories. So we'll be right back after this. Don't you leave. See you soon.
to say thank you to our organizational sponsors and donors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, and all of our individual donors and sponsors. Thank you for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. Please come be you.
Welcome back to Change Your Story, Change Your Life. We're here with Reverend Renée Leboa, and we're talking about the defining moments and lessons and blessings of her life journey and what love, hope, and transformation we can glean from this. Now, big part of the reason I'm so fascinated with story, and so is Jesus. I mean, he taught everything in a story, right? We live in stories, we move in stories, we think in stories. And I believe that our stories are the medicine for the world. They truly are. But it can be hard. It can be hard to tell these authentic stories because you have to go there sometimes to places that, you know, you might feel nervous about sharing or unsure about how people are going to look at you. And so I'm kind of curious, you know, when you did the My Brave performance, what was it within you that helped you find the courage to get up on stage and talk about what is still a hot button subject, you know, mental wellness, which is the way I look at it, because there's degrees of it and we all have degrees of it. Just like we have all degrees of bodily wellness, we have degrees of mental wellness. So
Right.
we're all going to be honest, right?
Right.
So what was it that gave you that courage to give your medicine up on that stage? And my hope is that it will also inspire someone to share their story.
And that was the whole, you just said it, is that by sharing my story, it was to give someone else hope, courage, and strength that you're not alone. And it was, I thought, well, here we go. I said I wanted to live an authentic life, and this is me. This is who I am. And so to tell your story could actually save a life. Yeah.
So it really wasn't about you so much. It's almost like you were being the crack, right? The light that's coming through that crack for even just one person.
Yeah, it was really scary. It's weird because, you know, I've spoken everywhere in the United States, pretty much, and some abroad, and that's never been an issue for me. I've never been nervous doing public speaking. I was terrified. It was really wild how terrified I was because I believe it was probably the most authentic talk or expression of myself that I'd ever done. And I received such positive feedback, and not only people saying thank you. I've been living with this, and I was keeping it a secret. And you know, it's my desire to have people come forth and talk about mental wellness in the same way that you would talk about, you know, your brother who just broke his leg and got a cast. Nothing to be ashamed of.
God, if we could just do that, right?
Yeah.
And not be thought of as weak or wrong or bad or flawed or. And we lean in with that sympathy, the same empathy that we would if you broke your leg.
Yeah. I think about it. You're at a dinner table and the conversation is going around and somebody says, oh, you know, I broke my leg, and everybody's like, oh, so sympathetic. And how are you doing in rehab? And then somebody says, oh, well, I'm recovering from a depressive depressive period. And everybody goes,
cricket, cricket, cricket.
It's like, why is that?
Why is that?
Why is that? Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's behind that, what's behind all of any othering that we do of somebody is really a reflection of fear.
Yes.
Something we're afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people go into that space when someone shares, you know, a mental illness or a condition with us. Sometimes we're afraid because we don't know what to say.
Right. Right.
It's just like when somebody, you know, if a friend of yours loses, you know, a partner, or, you know, somebody dies or has a transition, sometimes people just freeze up or stay away because they don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the silence that hurts. We
Yeah.
need to remember, even just the "I'm here for you" means so
Mm-hmm.
much.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even have to know how. Just
Right.
be there. Say, "I'm here for you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really important. I have found that if you just ask the question, how can I support you?
Yeah.
Or even to say, I don't know what to say here. I'm not skilled to have this conversation with you. Can you help me understand where you're at and how I can support you? It's really about that deep connection in any aspect of life, not just with mental illness or, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
when you go to the hospital, you see somebody, or, you know, how can I be the best for you in this moment? And I think that's what humanity is missing, or a big piece of what humanity is missing, is that separation between, I like to say that we're a global tribe, you know, and we're a cultural global tribe. And
Yes.
the only thing that separates us is the idea that we're separated.
Amen.
Yeah, we all feel the same things. We're all afraid. We have love. We have compassion. We think the same things. And we forget that.
Yeah. So all we need to do is remember that
Mhm.
in those moments where we're feeling maybe awkward or tense or
Sure.
not sure what to do. And that alone can be very, very healing. Just
Mhm.
that willingness to be vulnerable and to be present.
Right.
And I think we underestimate sometimes how incredibly healing just showing up in that way can be.
Mhm.
So we're to our signature question. I can't believe we're almost done. This hour has flown by. I can talk to you forever.
Mhm.
So here's what I want to know. Who has been your hero or shero? Whose story do you admire?
You know, I've been thinking a lot about this since you asked me that question yesterday. And this stream of faces went through my mind and my heart. And so the answer that I'm going to give you is, I've always been drawn to someone who overcomes something that seemed it would break them, and they go out and they find a new version of themselves. So I'm not going to say it's one person. I'm going to say that it's all the people that have inspired me, and there's many. There's women, especially women, because of where I came from with domestic violence and childhood abuse, and that when I see a woman who overcomes, I'm empowered. And so it's those thousands of names and thousands of faces of women who have, in spite of what's going on, they get up and they dust it off and they take another step. So it's all of us.
You just described my mother. That was powerful.
Oh,
Powerful. Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So, Reverend Renee, any final thoughts? What do you think about the Change Your Story, the show? What would you like to offer people?
You know, what I would like to offer people is the encouragement that if you have a story, follow Mitch. You can contact me. Mitch has a lot of programs that are going on that I think are really fantastic. And it's about rewriting and reframing your story. And so follow him, take his classes, take his workshops. If you would like any other support, you can contact me. Just ask the question, what's next for me? That's the encouragement, is that don't stop. Every breath is important.
Every breath's a gift.
Yeah.
Every breath's a gift.
Mhm.
And how can people connect with you, Reverend Renee, if they want to get you on a show or maybe get
Well,
you do spiritual life coaching or
I do spiritual life coaching,
yeah.
and I am working on my website because Mitch got all over me that I didn't have one. So
What? I did not. I did.
No, he says, you don't have a website. And I'm like,
I
yeah.
did. You got to fix that.
He's very encouraging. No, he is. He's just like, no, what's stopping you from being your best self? And so I am working on my website. So it's not up yet, but you can contact me through email, which is, oh, there it is. It's going across the screen right there.
Hey, there it is.
Yeah. But it's just Renée at, is it? Yeah, Renée at Leboa.com or whatever. And it's my email. Or you can messenger me through Facebook and you can set up a consultation. Consultations are free. It's a get to know you session.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again for saying yes and playing. Thelma and Louis here out.
Congratulations, by the way. I mean, congratulations. This is a new launch. I'm really grateful and I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you for your love and support. And I want to thank also New Thought Media Network and Reverend Briz for saying yes to Change Your Story, Change Your Life. I also want to thank 18 Source Studios, who provided me this lovely studio to be able to bring this broadcast to you. I also want to do a shout out to Reverend Donna Appadoni, who helped me get into show mode and understand what that world is like. Also, if you want to reach out to me, you can find me at speakteachinspire.com. I hope everyone has a blessed week. Go out there and share your light, share your story. Your story will heal the world. And I'll see everybody on September 6th. We have Leah Hertel. Until then, be well. Bye, everybody.